Hey there, friends. My name is Sarah Mastriani-Levi. I want to thank you for taking time to listen to another healing conversation. Tonight, as William and I were briefly discussing what we would like to speak to tonight, the subject of changes and challenges and just massive shifts that are going on right now, it seems like in every direction, and what is required of us to not only survive and thrive during this time kind of came up. And the idea of healing through courage was presented. And, we want to kind of just dive in. Obviously, we're never sure where this is going to go, but let's start to look. What is courage? Where does it show up? Where do we mislabel things as being courageous? What do we need to know? So let's see what shows up. William, will you join me? Hey there.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk on this topic, and also curious to see what, oftentimes in our conversations, the definitions of words, or not only the Oxford definition, but like the internalization of the idea changes how we process, how we were introduced. I think we've talked about this before, that words are often shaped by our first introduction to them as kids, and that pictograph is somehow in our mind that's going along with the word. Do you have a pictograph in your mind of what courage looked like when you were little?
Right. It is the Wizard of Oz and the cowardly lion, right? He didn't have courage, right? It's like, so I knew what courage wasn't, right? And then, slowly throughout, you see those moments where courage shows up. Yeah, for me, it started off as, if I show up this way, I don't have courage.
By the antithesis of it.
Right. So there wasn't this feeling that, this is courage. But there were so many things in my life. I don't know if it was just the people that I was hanging out with, or something, that feeling that a lot of words were, not this. This is not this. So instead of what it is, to really understand, it's like success. What you're doing is not success, right? What, this is perfect. This, what you're doing is not perfect. So what is perfect? I don't know, but you're not doing it, right? So it's the same thing with courage.
So as an adult now, when you hear that word, do you have a new vision or idea that comes to mind that is not the antithesis model that you were brought up with?
I know for me, it's like the pit in the stomach and the hairs on the back of my neck. Then it's like, all right, am I going to take a step, after these two moments, as I come aware? So yeah, for me, I feel courage in my body first. And then there is, then there's a deep breath, right? And then there's a slow move forward. I like I said, I realized before that what I thought was courage, or what I wanted to make courage mean, was, reckless abandon, right? Was really moving without thinking and calling it courage. And I think it was more, immaturity than courage, And so how can I really, and most of that, I'm just thinking that most of those movements, most of those times where I was just moving without thinking, I caused more damage. And I don't think courage, when we're moving in courage, it causes damage. I don't, for some reason, I don't, for me, that's how it's showing up for me. There is healing because we embrace courage. I don't know. I don't know why that's come up that way. I've never thought of that before, but yeah.
So if we go back a little bit to your words of reckless abandon,
Right.
to me, the visceral or the somatic sensation that goes through my body of reckless abandon is one of two things. Like, one, that I'm just so excited, let's just go forward and do this. Like,
Right.
on the surface, this looks like a great idea. Move, 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 troops out. Kind of like,
Right.
let's do this. And the other one is a place of deep desperation of, I've got nothing to lose at this point. Just this
Right.
hopelessness. And whether I take a small step or a big step doesn't matter at this point. Just that fuck it mentality. I'm doing it.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I've got nothing to lose because I'm so
Right.
depressed or the desperation. And
Right.
I think I've been in both of those situations, but I'm not sure that either of them are actually courage.
Yeah, I think I've been in the state of more desperation, and and really that, I have nothing else to lose, so let's go. It can't get any worse than this. I can remember many times saying that. It's like, well, look, I can't get any worse than this. And so really, because there's a large part of my life where I was not purposely connected to my feelings. So really, mainly because, and I think I've mentioned it before, that because I felt like I couldn't control them. I wanted to control my feelings. I didn't just want to feel my feelings. I wanted to control them. And so because I separated myself from them and kind of really, there wasn't ever this sense of excitement. Let's just go. This is this is amazing. Let's just kind of do this. Because anytime that emotion would come on to me, it's like, time out. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Right.
Type of thing. So yeah, I there's definitely, you're right. They're both are not courage. It's very interesting. I'm trying to find the language to see what it is, what they are.
This gets
Right.
tricky, right? So if
Right.
we look at courage by definition, and people correct me if I'm wrong, but to the best of my memory, courage has French roots, and it means with heart, like doing something with all of your heart.
Right.
So I think it's that deep knowing, that
Right.
intuition that this is the right step, even if everything else around us
Right.
doesn't make sense.
Right. Virtuous and
Brave.
yeah. There is a larger than yourself type of heroic type of thing.
Makes me wonder if this idea, and viewers, please don't misunderstand my appreciation and gratitude for soldiers, but it makes me wonder if the expendability of young 18-year-old soldiers who have a huge amount of drive, and calling them brave, and they're moving kind of in a pack mentality according to a leadership.
Right.
Is that really brave, or is that, is it with heart?
Right.
Or is it because this is a desperation of, or a commitment, or, there's a lot of things that come up when you think about who would you call brave? Who would you call
Right.
courageous in life?
There's two things that came up for me because, in my national political aspirations. One of my platforms was to just right the wrong of our veterans. I mean, it's just, you can't have people go to war or just sign up to fight for you and then leave them, on the streets, leave them in hospitals, leave them, so that it's like, for me, and this is what came up for me, and it's very hard. And I guess we'll put a disclaimer from me too, is that putting brave or hero or courage on soldiers is to justify the expendability of the people. It's just to kind of, it's almost to kind of clean their hands. Well, that was, and it's like, it just really, it's inconsistent. It feels inconsistent. It feels, there is this, what are we fighting for? What is the courage for? And I think that's why the heart needs to be involved. That's why the valor needs to be involved. It can't be just, hey, I just gave you a gun, or I just gave you, something. Just kind of get up all your courage and just kind of make it happen. And I think in some cases that's how I would live my life, in the sense that my heart wasn't in it, but I felt like I got to man up and do this. And that's not, and it wasn't courage. It was the desperation. It was the, being overwhelmed by emotions. And, sometimes the excitement emotion is not the only emotion that cause us to kind of do stupid shit, right? Right, so
Desperation, for sure.
Right. And so it's just feel that what is my heart inviting me, are wanting to partner in my bravery, right? To allow me to embrace courage. And I think that's where the healing is. That's if the heart is not involved, there's no, it's it's not courage, right? And so so then there's no possibility, in my opinion, of healing. So it's just, wow. I'm just really feeling that, I mean, am I using courage to cover up my, I don't want to say, lack of integrity, lack of, lack of, honor, or lack of understanding, right? Am I just, putting a nice little courage or brave sticker on it, just so people can think well of me, to look good?
So many thoughts are rushing through my head as I process what you're saying. And I know that I'm brave in ways that other people, by comparison, I'm brave. I do things that other people wouldn't do. Sometimes it's with heart. Sometimes it's with desperation. And sometimes it's just with spontaneity as well. The spontaneity and the desperation ends of the spectrum have significantly shortened since I have children.
Right.
Because, or the limits of that spectrum have been pushed out in accordance with what I will do for the benefit of my children as well.
Got it.
So making crazy moves cross-continent with 4 kids in tow, a lot of people wouldn't do that move. And I don't think it was out of desperation. It was a very heartfelt move, right? Moving to where we are right now for the benefit of their schooling and the things that the opportunities took me out of my comfort zone. So I think we're clear that bravery and courage takes us out of, you talked about the goosebumps and the hair standing up, like it
Right.
takes us out of our comfort zone.
Right.
But I think by default, we can't really look into courage and bravery without looking at the other side of the coin. You know, we try and step in and out of this duality, non-duality existence, but fears and shadows are all, in order to know that we're doing something brave, we have to know what we're afraid of.
Right. Right.
In order, and we don't see our shadows, right?
Right. I think what's coming up for me is I see fear, right? A fear comes up because there is a belief or there is an understanding that if I do this or if I don't do this, there is going to be a loss. There is going to be a deficit. And am I willing to, I guess, deal with that? And the only way that courage comes up within those decisions, really, is, I think, in service of, in benefit of, I guess, myself and the collective, right? And because there's a feeling that there is a lot of things. Look, I stayed at a job that I hated for a number of years because I was the only one working, and we growing family. And it was, was that courageous? Was that courage? I don't know. I know it got to a point where my body was like, we're out, like, it's like, yeah, you can go to work here, but we're not going anymore.
Didn't the courage actually show up the moment that you decided to listen to your heart and your body and be like, I cannot have this separation between these parts of myself, this compartmentalization any longer?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I continue to think about things that society labels as brave, that may be brave, whether they're actually feeding the ego, and also the question of, if we continue to do the same brave thing again and again, is it really brave?
Right.
Even if we don't know entirely what we're getting into, we know
Right.
more or less what our body is going to sense when we do something. Is it still bravery? Are we still training that muscle of being courageous if we're doing the same thing again and again, even if it's just superhuman for the majority of the population?
Right. I don't think so. I think the first time is brave, and after that, it's
Devotion.
right. It's it moves to a different category, and so I am not what is that, a thrill seeker or anything by any means. So it's like, oh, I did this, now I go up to the next level. Now I'm going to do this with one hand behind my back. Now I'm going to do this with with a bowling ball on my head. Something, so crazy stuff like like that.
Yeah.
There's not this feeling that I need to like up the ante to kind of prove that I have courage, I'm brave, I'm strong, all the things, type of thing. But I think for me, most of the times courage shows up, one, for me, when I don't think I have it, right? It shows up for me when there is there's a high price there's a cost. I have decided this is going to cost me something.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not just putting on the big boy pants. There is something more than that. And there is, I think it was like something that came up last week. I don't know if we brought it on the show or not. But God doesn't give us more than we can handle. He gives us just a little bit more. And within that gap is the pain, the discomfort,
The grace.
the grace, all the things that is calling us
Yeah.
into courage, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
and it is expanding us. It's calling us to greater.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm really, look, I'm embracing that, but I'm not inviting that, right? You're right. If it shows up, it's like, damn it. Okay, now we're dealing with this, but I'm not looking for it. I'm not looking for the gaps, right? I'm not looking for shadows, right?
Mm.
I think I said last week, I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Yeah, I'm not afraid of them, but I'm not looking for them either, right?
Mm. So you just said, I ain't afraid of no ghosts, but I'm not going to go looking for them. And I think the universe heard you. And through a power surge, is that what you said? We've been
Yeah.
kind of for about 15 minutes trying to get things back on board. And here we are with the universe reminding us that, there's some shadows that we really do need to acknowledge in our courage. And even though we can usually figure stuff out,
Right.
we're not here to talk about how we figure stuff out. We're talking about like the surrender that comes in the courage and the trust that comes in when you're moving with your heart, right?
Oh boy, yes. There is this. For me, I was like, do I have the courage to let her know that this is probably not going to work, right? It's this, and it's like it doesn't even feel like that is what it is. It is
Mm-hmm.
it because courage is beyond looking good, right?
Right, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when you're crossing the finish line, not many people look good. You look pretty beaten down,
Right.
but you did it.
Right. So what is it that there's all of I'm looking at how I use courage um, and how I explain courage and if that is really courage. I mean, because like I said earlier, that it is so much a part of when I first was introduced to it, it's what it's not, right? This is the absence of. And so it feels like throughout my life, I have just been like, is this courage? Is this courage? This is courage. This is not, this kind of really to find the place where courage really shows up and courage really is. And then we can not get the benefits, but really just like I said, I think it's for the collective. It's like we have courage for ourselves to bring something into the world, to establish something, to forward something. It's not just for sake, for my sake, I'm going to have courage, right?
Mm.
Right now, and just kind of go from there.
I feel like for me, it has been a calling to do something often for other people.
Hmm.
Not a facade, but an actual service for other people.
Got it.
that has been guided very much by spirit. Like, in human terms, it probably seems stupid to the logical mind at times, because the logical mind wants to keep us safe.
Right.
And when we do things that are inherently not safe and logically stupid at times,
Right.
and we've created an entire dialogue within our psyche of why this is, then there's a leaning in that is either to this very skewed story, or a leaning into, I am being divinely guided to do this, even though it does not make sense.
Right. Sometimes what just came up for me, sometimes things that don't make sense just don't make sense. Has nothing to do with courage, right?
Right, right,
Sometimes stupid things are just stupid things, right?
right.
And it feels like for me is that, one, if it's something that doesn't make sense, or it's just nobody believes it, okay, this has to be courage, right? This has, and that's, it's like, think again, ask again. And I think, as we said earlier, it's something that we do with heart,
For
you
sure.
know. And so I guess if there's a stupid idea that's not connected to the heart, don't do it. I don't know.
There, there have been a lot of things that I have done that have not made sense to people,
Mm,
that I have been ridiculed, and yeah, some not so nice things have been said to me about things that I
mm,
did with my heart,
mm.
knowing that were true, by people who, it's like the haters are always the ones to pull. The people who would never show up for the
Right,
job are the
right,
ones that always have the deepest criticism. And then usually they sing your praises later after you've done it and say that they knew you could do it because
right.
whatever. And all of that, just, it's like, first you want to destroy me, and then you want to have your ego and say that, oh, it's no big deal, or you knew that it could happen. And it's like, where am I playing into all of this, and where am I just kind of shutting it out and just still listening to where I'm being guided?
It's almost that where I say we because I've done this, before, is that I'm protecting the way that I see the world, right?
Mm,
In you know, then you create something else by standing in your courage. Something else is created. Then it's like, oh, okay, I can now kind of get down with this. But the protecting my way of thinking, my way of being, how I see the world is more important than you showing up in courage, right?
mm, yeah.
And when you were saying that, I was like, what business is it of
Of anyone.
mine,
Yeah.
right? If I'm operating in courage, well, if you're operating in courage, what,
It
you,
doesn't
you
matter
know,
what people think.
right,
That deep listening. I think that we have been societally trained not
mm,
to listen to ourselves
mm, yeah,
by figureheads, by organizations
mm,
who dictate for the masses what is
right,
safe, what is. I mean, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be laws.
right,
Don't misunderstand me. But there are so many things that are not of the heart, that there is liberty around them, supposedly,
right,
but people are shunned for exercising their liberty to do something different,
right,
and even called stupid if there's not science to support what they've
right,
decided.
right,
Lots of really, I mean, that's just one term of many
right.
that we've
Or
encountered.
denier, right?
A truth denier, a truth
Right.
that was designated by these same people who have created the entire framework that this entire society is functioning around. It's like, okay, I don't. Where do we get to think? Where do we get to actually have our own opinions and
Right.
actions that match?
Yeah, there is. You're just bringing something to mind as someone, a dear friend of mine, asks basically asked me to pray for her, that she would have the courage to do what she believes, to speak
Mm,
up because she was feeling that there was this pressure
mm.
to just, fall in line, and she was like, I just can't. But I mean, I know it may cost me my job. There's just so much, but she wants she, asked me and others to pray that she, does, what she believes is right and stand up in courage. And it was real, it's like I got it, but it was like, I don't think I really understand the level of struggle that's
Yeah.
really happening here. I mean,
Safety,
even,
right? Personal
yeah,
safety.
yeah. And it's like sometimes I think the comparison, I don't know if you said this or I said this earlier, there is there are activities and things that we do that in comparison with somebody else, this may seem brave or this may seem, something. But in the grand scheme of it all, it may be nothing, right?
So I know that we're dealing with some technical difficulties, and tonight is a night that we actually recorded the show not live. So thank you for being patient with us through the hiccups and the jumps and whatever may or may not show up. Here's some cards that I pulled. When I focus on my inner light, I see the world through the lens of love, which makes me wonder, where do we need to see our courage? Through the lens of love, because our inner light is very much connected to our heart. And it's amazing how these cards never cease to amaze how relevant they are for the topics we talk about. So 2 cards came up. Oops. Face your fears. Farewell to fear phantoms. So fear phantoms, where do they stand in the way of us being courageous? Face your shadow. This is the ultimate in being courageous. It's doing things that are uncomfortable. It's looking at things. It's hearing things. It's being willing to hear the things that are difficult to hear, to face our shadow, to be triggered, and to stay in the conversation. So often the conversation just disappears and we don't, we stay with those triggers and it doesn't help. We've got some echoes going on.
Yeah. Hopefully that'll go away.
Okay. Do you want me to keep going?
Yes.
Okay. The next thing that we have is really talking about, great and full has to do with just realizing our abundance, but also that what we are is enough and that we continue to show up for ourselves and that will be enough. But we must continue to address whatever is showing up. And to remember that we're blessed. Ultimately, that we were given this opportunity in this life to do things and not just sit where we are and do what we're told. That we're blessed with courage when we need it, if we connect to our heart. We're invited to be very present in the here and now, and that what's showing up is what's going to be required of us to take the next step in being courageous. That it is not necessarily just what we're planning to do to be brave in the future, but how can we show up brave? She has a little flag. You are here. How can you open those doors of your heart to conversations that might trigger you and be courageous? We're invited to take a higher view. I love owls, as many of you know, owl medicine is just pure magic, and it shows up to guide us and to really take an overarching view, as I talked with William before we started the show, that so often in coaching, you know far more about a situation because you may have had another conversation with someone else who's involved with that situation, as a mediator or as a coach. And you don't always spill everything that you know. You hold your cards very tightly, so to speak, to be able to protect all of the parties that are involved, but also to be able to look from a higher view, to be able to mediate and to advise from a place that's for the benefit of all. So owl medicine really takes us into that place where we can overlook the situation and ask for divine guidance to be able to move in courage where necessary, and also to be able to see the shadow situations and ask the questions that will help people to know their truth and to show up fully for themselves. The last card I have here is the Peacekeeper, and it says, let go of the need to be right. What if you could just hold the information and allow it all to be and be in peace with it? And sometimes being courage is knowing how much another person can handle at that point, how much of yourself you can share, choosing to share what feels right in your heart. What can you do to keep the peace? Are there times when you need to just let it all out in a rage? Or where can you slowly address things at a gentle, peacekeeping pace? Sometimes you need both. Sometimes things need direct action, and other things need more complicated action with waiting and pacing in smaller steps. So if you've been with us this long, I really appreciate you taking the time and sticking through this very odd, we really haven't had any speed bumps quite like this when we've recorded in the past. And so we would love to hear your thoughts on where courage and bravery shows up, where fears and shadows run the show, where there are places that you feel that you can apply some of the operating from the place of from the heart that we discussed. We would love to hear anything that you'd like to comment, and share about this. And we are certainly just very appreciative of all the people who are dialoguing, listening, sharing, and watching, contributing to these healing conversations. We hope this has been beneficial to you, and we wish you all the best until we see you next week. Thanks so much. Bye for tonight. Blessings.